Welcome back, friends. I'm Olivia Wall, and this is part 2 of my conversation with Katie Keier about Writer's Playshop. If you have not listened to part 1 yet, pause this episode, go back. It's below this. That conversation serves as today's foundation. In part 1, Katie introduced us to the whole concept of Writer's Playshop, how it was named by a 5-year-old, why she uses black pens instead of pencils, why she never spells words for children, and her powerful distinction between teaching with fidelity versus teaching with integrity. Today, we're going deeper into the heart of why this work matters so much. We're talking about equity, access, the power of honoring every child's story. Whether that story is about swimming in a pond, making tamales with grandma, or something funny their dog did. We're exploring how Writer's Playshop becomes an entry point for multilingual learners, for children who don't see themselves in scripted curricula, for families whose cultures and traditions deserve to be celebrated, not just accommodated. Katie's going to share how she documents learning without losing presence with her children, how she navigates required basal programs while maintaining her integrity as a teacher, and how kindergartners, yes, kindergartners, have become environmental advocates, petitioning their school to go plastic and straw-free. We're also going to talk about something that really resonates right now: Katie's reflection on what captures her heart most about this work. And yes, you're finally going to hear Katie's full bear story. But more than anything, this conversation is about hope. Because in a world where adults are letting us down left and right, Katie reminds us that children, given space, materials, choice, and belief in their brilliance, will rise to meet the moment. They already are. Here's part 2 of my conversation with Katie Keier. This is Schoolutions Teaching Strategies, the podcast that extends education beyond the classroom. A show that isn't just theory, but practical, try-it-tomorrow approaches for educators and caregivers to ensure every student finds their spark and receives the support they need to thrive. I am Olivia Wall, and I'm so happy to be back with Katie Keier. This is part 2 of our conversation. Katie, you did such a beautiful job expressing what Writer's Playshop is, the philosophy behind the choices you make for us as listeners. And I asked for part 2 that we speak more to how Writer's Playshop offers opportunities for all learners in our classrooms. And I've said to you that I see Writer's Playshop as a structure that actually elevates the stories of children and their families. And that's what I love about it. It's just beautiful. So let's start off with, I think of play, I think of equity, and I think of access. When you think of those 3 words, how do they align with your philosophy of Writer's Playshop?
Absolutely. Thank you. Those, if I had to choose like 5 words that were at the heart of the work, those were absolutely be 3 of them. They are just so important. First of all, speaking just to the play, is children have a right to play. That is a right that they can play. And I look at the children in our classroom and the wide ranges of what they bring to the classroom. And they all bring so much, so many multiple ways of knowing, and every
Yeah.
child has a story. And I think what I love about this work is children know through our Writers Play Shop that they're in charge of their own stories. And there's a sense of power that comes with that. And power from a power for a 4 and 5-year-old is huge. And knowing that the stories that we tell in our community build that community. And there's stories about things like, making tamales with their grandmother. There's stories about going swimming in a pond. There's stories about um, just the littlest things, about something funny their dog did. And I think when we have so many materials and so many offerings and invitations for them to tell stories, there's an entry point for everyone.
What are you watching and listening for?
during play shop, but also I'm thinking you can watch on the playground when they're out with their peers. You can watch during lunchtime, the interactions there. So how do you capture what you see them doing and saying?
Well, I really from day one, I teach them that, that stories live everywhere and that we want to live a writerly life. We want to live as someone who's looking for stories. So, in those other settings like the playground and the lunchroom, I invite them like, whoa, you had something happen. You could come back and make it a story in our writer's play shop. During our writer's play shop time, I think the biggest thing that I need to remember is that my job is to be curious and to be a listener, to wait, to really let their stories take over. I try very hard not to say, "Oh, is that a forest? Is that your setting?" Like putting my agenda in there, what I think it might be, which, they look at you like, no, that's a planet in outer space. Okay." So really being quiet. You will not hear my voice a whole lot during Writer's Play Shop. It's more like I ask them, can you tell me about your story? Can I listen to you read your story to me, even if it's, something that they're playing in sand. Um, so it's kind of taking my agenda and putting it away and being fully present with them. And then going back to all that work of Writer's Play Shop with conferring, all of Carl Anderson's work and Matt Glover's work, and then knowing when to like slide that in, like, wow, can you tell me more about that? Or those conferring questions that we might use with older children in their writing, I'm using that as they're playing out their stories.
Ah, beautiful. Do you take copious notes while you're in conversation with children? I guess the reason I'm asking that is I always really struggled because I wanted to be present and to be listening, and I felt like if I was documenting everything while a child's talking to me, I'm not present. So I
Right.
stopped and I would give myself about, gosh, only 30 seconds between when I moved to listen and observe,
Mhm.
watch another child to catch my notes up, but how do you manage that?
I do the exact same thing. I
Okay.
cannot stand there and write well, like, because immediately the children are distracted
To
and they're
like
like, "Well, what are
you're
you
like, "What are you
writing? What are you
writing,
doing?"
friend?"
Yeah. Um, I do a lot of videos, and sometimes I'll do like, "Oh, can I take a video?" And sometimes I'll just quietly start it as they're telling, depending on the child. If I know that they're gonna be like, "Yes, take a video of me," I
Mhm.
might just do it more, on the sly. I do a lot of videos, a lot of photos, and then I take time, during between meeting with children or oftentimes over my lunchtime because it happens right after and I know it's so fresh in my mind. And
Yeah.
I can sit there and jot down my documentation and my notes then.
Yeah. That is validating for me because I always felt guilty that if someone walked by and saw me just on the rug with kids, it would be discounted, but I knew how valuable it
Yeah,
was. So, let's
absolutely.
then pivot a little bit or segue to I mean, it's really hard when we believe in something so deeply, and then the world of education swings one way or swings the other and questions practices that we may know are really, really good for kids. So, how do you reconcile? What do you say if you have an administrator that questions the value of play shop or a colleague or a caregiver? I mean, there's movement in every different area of our world right now
Right,
pushing.
right. So I am part of a district that has a required
Mhm.
basal textbook series. And what I make sure that I know the standards and I know what I need to be teaching and I know what children have to learn. I keep that at my forefront. But what's even more important is providing that time and space and choice for Writers Play Shop. So I know what I need to teach enough to make sure that I'm meeting those standards through my teaching and through my small groups and my one on one and my meeting with writers during Writers Play Shop. And I can explain that and explain what I'm doing and have research that supports what I'm doing if I'm questioned. I am fortunate that I do have an administration that supports what I do and knows that what I do shows results.
Yeah.
Children achieve, children learn how to read and write. And I think with caregivers and families, the important thing is making sure that they're informed and that they know what I'm doing and why I'm doing and all that research in play and how I'm doing kind of a both and approach that I'm looking at the lesson that is in our series and here's what I need to teach. And this is how I'm teaching that. This is how I'm meeting those objectives through my focus lesson in Writer's Play Shop or my conferencing with children during Writer's Play Shop.
Katie, at the end of each session at NCTE, I would pause and I had a section in the back of my notebook I called Big Ideas that I want to carry forward. And I had a phrase that you said that I think about all the time. And you said, fidelity is very different than integrity. And I want everyone to hear you explain the difference between the two because I am over hearing we have to teach with fidelity. You have such a beautiful reframe. Will you share that?
Absolutely. I think first of all, we need to ask who do we have fidelity to? Do we have fidelity to a program or to children? And I mean, I have fidelity to children.
Same.
That's my job. Teaching with integrity means that I am meeting the standards, I am teaching the objectives, and I'm doing it in a way that is responsive and appropriate for the children, the human beings that are in my classroom. Because the people that are writing these textbooks, while they are pulling on research and they are definitely planning out lessons that are a good starting point, a good framework, they don't know the 20, 30 children that are in front of you at that moment. And the same lesson that I did today with my children looked very different than the same lesson I did last year because the human beings are different. Is the end result the same? Absolutely. And the objectives, is the end objective the same? Yes. But I need to approach it in different ways. So teaching with integrity to me is keeping those objectives and the standards. Those are non-negotiable, but I am being responsive and teaching children.
I love the idea of being responsive in teaching children. And I also very much appreciate that you are welcoming caregivers and to be part of this process. So I think often, we need to celebrate what our children are doing in
Yeah.
beautiful ways. Would you just bring forth for us, how do you celebrate your children's writers' play shop pieces with arts and the Reggio Emilia practices? How do you celebrate their work?
Well, we do lots of documentation and displays in our school, in our hallway, the hallway bulletin boards. As well, I take tons of photos, and the photos are up on the walls in our classroom. Like photos of lots of the stories that they've built with blocks are displayed in the block area. I also have a large journal that I will put photos of children's stories and write down what their story was, so that they can kind of look back and remind
Yeah.
themselves and remember these stories. I also do we invite families in. We're actually having a play date tomorrow where families can come in to our classroom
So
and
good.
they can create stories with their families. So children can show their families, how we use loose parts and how we make stories in the sand table and the blocks and then how we take those stories and put them into books so they can live forever. That once we start doing those author celebrations and inviting families in, I see a huge migration over to a more traditional book, because children want to have their story live forever. Those are the
Yeah.
words I say, if you put that story in a book, it can live forever. So I might snap a picture, I'll print it the next day. The child will remember what their story was and they'll write it down in a book. Or oftentimes they'll do the book right there as they're making the story. They might be playing a bit and then moving over into the book. Um, have them live forever. And definitely at the end of every writer's play shop time, a time where they're sharing them with each other. So I might put a video I took of the child telling a story or a photo up on the whiteboard, and the children will tell the story, or they'll read the book in more of a traditional like author's chair.
Oh, beautiful. What about the arts integration and background work you've done?
So I was very fortunate to be at a public school that had a partnership with the Kennedy Center called CETA, Changing Education Through the Arts, and we had a lot of teaching artists that would come in and spend time in our classrooms, from puppetry to drama, and I really take that along with the work I've done with Reggio Emilia and the idea of 100 languages, and that children can express themselves in many, many different ways and through different materials, and the importance of materials.
Yeah.
And those kind of go into, into our writer's play shop every day with the aesthetics, with how the materials are set up, that they're easily accessible, and they're set up in a beautiful way because children deserve that. They deserve to have beauty in their lives, and beauty in their classroom. And also taking that the idea that stories can be told with drama, that Vivian Gus and Paley's work with oral storytelling.
Yes.
We do that every day. We have two storytellers of the day that dictate a story. I read it, and they choose audience members to act it out. So
Oh,
that
so
also
cool.
layers in with that storytelling piece. So and that is another piece that really speaks to equity and agency is, all stories are honored. No story is too small or too big. And children bring so many beautiful things from their homes and their culture.
Yeah.
I love hearing them bringing in stories about their family and their pets and their cultures, because it just makes that community, that beloved community, so much stronger. Because it's through stories that our voices are heard, that we know that our ideas matter.
Yeah.
It's what gives us strength to keep going.
Yeah. And it also, I think when we talk about a culture of learning and just celebrating what our children are bringing, it makes for such a rich environment for our children to see that everyone is different, families are all different, and that's perfectly okay. Come as you are. And so I think I've often wanted to ask you the question, so I'm just going to do it. In all of your years of teaching, what looking back now, what would you say has captured your heart the most? Because this is heart work. It's not easy work. You invest a lot of time in creating this beauty for your children. What hits your heart the most, though, about working with kindergartners in general?
Is hearing their strong, brave voices. They just never cease to amaze me. Um, from a little girl, the second week of school, she saw some trash on the playground and made a poster with "It still hangs on our door. We have to take care of the earth. We have to pick up trash." And, um, another group of kindergartners that I have, one of the children had learned about sea turtles and trash in the ocean. And they petitioned our school to become one of the plastic and straw-free schools, in the county, and they wrote letters and they wrote posters and they put them up in the cafeteria, and, that's the power of this work, is that everyone can contribute to that, and they know that their voices can be heard and that their voices are important and that they have things to say. They see themselves as capable and confident out of, a belief that that's who we are in this classroom, and that struggle is something to be celebrated. That, oh, if we work really hard on something, we made these amazing research posters the kids did last year, and one of my little girls wanted to stay in for recess to finish it, and I said sure, and she was researching horses, and it was amazing. And at the end, she said, "Miss Katie, it was so hard and so wonderful." And I'm like, "Yeah." Yeah, that's,
Yeah, I
that's the
feel it.
power of
It
kindergartners.
it is.
They're brilliant human beings exactly how they are in their 5 and 6-year-old ways. I love it.
Well, and we see a lot of apathy as kids get older and with adults too these days. And I was talking or in conversation with Katie Kelly yesterday, and she has the brilliant book
Yeah.
Empathy to Action. And she said the words empathy is the opposite of apathy. And so, what you are doing is fostering this beautiful empathy within your children and celebrating story at the same time. I have to ask you before I let you go, is there a picture book? Is there a resource that you circle back to? It's impossible for you to name just one, but I'm still going to ask you to. Is there something you go back to over and over and over that you use as a model with kids?
I will tell you, there is one that every year I'm on maybe my 3rd or 4th copy of it. It's called Kitchen Dance,
Oh,
and
I love
it
kitchen
is
dance.
it is the most beautiful. It is a simple story about 2 little kids who hear their mom and dad in the kitchen as they're cleaning up dishes, and they all dance. They sneak out and look,
Yeah.
and their mom and dad pull them in, and they all dance, and then they put them back to bed. And it's a story I think everyone can relate to, this little family, like a special family moment, and that book is just one we keep going back to for so much
Yeah.
in our writing and in our writer's play shop and our
I
reading.
love that that's your book,
Yes,
Katie.
I love
Oh,
it.
that's
It's
such a good
fabulous.
book. And
Yes.
the idea too, that's how I used to teach children to draw, characters from behind because the
Yes.
children are peeking in on their
Yep.
parents, and it's
Yep.
so rare. It's such a oh, that's a great small
It's
moment story too.
wonderful. It
So
is
good.
such a
Um
good book.
It's
Yeah.
good, and I think too, we will end on the note that it is absolutely critical that as adults, we have our buckets being filled and have a way to nurture our own hobbies. I've learned about you, you are a runner, and you are a for reals runner, Katie. You're not just, like, jogging around the block. You are a runner. So, talk about how running is therapy for you, but also I'm going to beg of you, in part 1, you alluded to the story of the bear, but let's end with the story of the bear. So
Okay.
talk running and the bear.
Yes, yes. I am a runner. I'm a trail runner. I do ultras, which are events over
Crazy.
26 miles. So from 50 miles to 100 miles, I've done a 200 miler. It is my happy place being in the mountains, on the trails. It is a time that I am 100% present with the beauty of nature, with the what my body can do. It takes me being very brave, running through the evenings overnight, running into animals that you might not expect to see. Um, and I tell stories about my running all the time in the classroom, because children need to be brave, but people need to be brave too. And teachers need to be very, very brave in the world we're in right now to do this important work. Um, so my bear story is a true story. And it's how I've started my writer's play shop the last several years. And I just say one day I was running on a trail. It was really quiet. And all of a sudden, I heard this, and I stopped and I looked, and right in front of me was a giant bear. And do you know what I did? I went, "There, bear, there, bear." And the bear looked at me and ran off into the woods. And I took a deep breath and I kept on running. S- The end.
The
Okay. True story. So
bear,
the
bear,
kids,
and I live to tell the
I live
story.
to tell about it, and the
Oh,
kids just
Katie.
love that story. They love to act it out, and
Yeah,
yeah, so that's
it's
my bear
so good.
story.
It's so good, and Katie, I cannot tell you from the moment had the privilege I've followed you for a very long time, and your writing is just so inspiring. I will tuck links to, all of your goodness in the show notes, but
Thank you.
you're doing the work, and it is hard, but it's heart work, and I truly believe if we stay this course, we are nurturing a generation of kids that will care and stand up for what is right. I have lost so much faith in grown-ups right now, but I truly believe that our kids
Yeah.
care. We just have to give them the space
Yeah.
to have their voices be elevated. So you're my hope and they're
Absolutely.
my hope. Thank
Oh,
you.
they are brilliant. They are capable and they can do so many great things. Yeah, they're my joy. I can't imagine not walking into that classroom every day.
It's what
Yeah,
keeps us going. So thank you so
absolutely.
much. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to just sit with the words of one of Katie's kindergartners. It was so hard and so wonderful. That kindergartner researching horses, choosing to stay in from recess, pouring her heart into a poster. She named exactly what meaningful work can feel like. And she could only do that because Katie created a classroom where struggle is celebrated, where effort is honored, and where the point isn't perfection, it's purpose. That's the world Writers Playshop creates. I want you to think about something Katie said earlier in this conversation. Who do we have fidelity to? Do we have fidelity to a program or to children? Because here's the truth. Teaching with integrity does meet standards. It does prepare children for assessments, but it does something else too. It prepares children to be advocates, storytellers, change makers, to know their voices matter, to see themselves as capable exactly as they are. That's not extra. That's not a nice to have. That's the whole point. If you want to connect with Katie, I've linked everything in the show notes, her blog, her writing for NCTE, all the resources we mentioned from Katie Wood-Ray, Matt Glover, Vivian Gussimpelli, the Reggio Emilia approach, all of it. Now, next week, I have something completely different, but equally essential. I'm sitting down with Stacy Shubitz to talk about her groundbreaking new book for families navigating IEPs, 504 plans, and disability services. This conversation is for teachers supporting families and for parents in the trenches. We're talking about reframing evaluations as finding the key to unlock learning, about protecting your relationships when therapy schedules take over your calendar, about cultivating joy beyond the appointments and paperwork. It's honest, it's practical, it's going to give you language you need and permission you didn't know you were even seeking. Make sure you've subscribed so you don't miss it. And until then, go be curious, go listen to children's stories, go believe in their brilliance. And maybe, just maybe, go get yourself some black pens and loose parts. See you next week. Schoolutions Teaching Strategies is created, produced, and edited by me, Olivia Wall. Thank you to my older son, Benjamin, who created the music playing in the background. You can follow and listen to Schoolutions wherever you get your podcasts or subscribe to never miss an episode and watch on YouTube. Thank you to my guest, Katie Keier, for offering a fresh way to reframe our purpose, teaching with integrity to our children, and offering us a way to do that through Writers Playshop. And please, if this conversation resonated with you, share it. Send it to a colleague who's questioning whether play-based learning can really work. Send it to that administrator who needs to hear about integrity versus fidelity. Send it to a parent who's worried their child is behind. Because stories live everywhere, and every child deserves a classroom where their stories matter. Send me an email at schoolutionspodcast@gmail.com and let me know how it went. What are you excited to try next? Don't forget to tune in every Monday and Friday for part 1 and part 2 of my guest conversations with the best research-backed coaching and teaching strategies that you can apply right away to better the lives of the children in your care. And look for your 60-second bite-sized piece of learning on Wednesdays from our conversation that you can share with a colleague. Take care, and thank you for forever getting better with me. See you next week.